Okay, so today in class we talked about the distributive property and fractions. Okay, and we talked about this term clearing fractions or getting rid of fractions to be able to solve the equation more easily. There are two ways that we can clear fractions. Way number one is to multiply by the least common denominator, or the denominator that gets rid of all the fractions. So for example, if I have 1/3 and 1/6, okay, I can multiply this whole thing by 6 to be able to get rid of both the third and the sixth. The second way I can do it is to multiply by the reciprocal or the inverse. This is used if we have a fraction like 3/4 that's outside of a parenthesis like x minus 1. Okay, and we want to try to get rid of this whole fraction, right? So instead of having to distribute it into each term, I'd rather just get rid of it right off the bat. The way you can do that is multiplying by the reciprocal or the inverse or flipped version of it. Okay, so let's go ahead and practice with a few examples. Let's do the first one. Okay, so let's do the first way. Let's first multiply by the least common denominator. Okay, and in this case, since I only have one fraction, it happens to be 3. So I'm going to multiply by 3. What I do to one side, I also have to do to the other. Okay, now this 3 is actually 3/1, because if you remember our identity property, any number over itself equals the number. So if I have 4/1, that is the same as 4. 3/1 is the same as 3. 5/1 is the same as 5, and so on. Okay. So I'm going to multiply by 3. I am going to cross multiply, and those 3's cancel out. So I am left with 2x/1. Oh, but since I know that anything over 1 equals itself, I know that's really just the same as 2x. Okay? And 8 times 3 is 24. Now I want to try to get x all by itself, so I'm going to divide by 2 on each side. So I'm left with x equals 12. Okay, on this side, we're going to multiply by the reciprocal. I just want to get rid of this whole 2/3 right away. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply by the inverse, the reciprocal, or the flipped version. Ta-da! And this crosses those out. So now I'm left with x equals, oh, but how do we multiply 8 by 3/2? Well, if you remember, 8/1 is the same as 8. And I'm going to change it to that to make it a little easier to multiply my fractions. Once I have them both in fraction form, I can just multiply straight across. 8 times 3 is 24. 1 times 2 is 2. All I have to do now is x equals 24/2, or 24 divided by 2, which simplifies to 12.